You've probably heard a million times that being smart is the key to success. But what if that very same intelligence could actually be a trap? What if it makes us more likely to stick with bad ideas? Well, today we're diving into the power of rethinking and why sometimes your smartest beliefs might just be your most dangerous ones. It's a pretty wild question when you stop and think about it, isn't it? I mean, we see it happen all the time. Some genius inventor, a titan of industry, makes a huge mistake that seems so obvious to the rest of us in hindsight. So we're going to explore why that happens and, more importantly, how you can avoid it. Okay, let's kick things off with a classic story. You remember the BlackBerry, right? For a while there, it was the device. Seriously, everyone from celebrities to world leaders had one. It wasn't just a phone, it was this huge status symbol, a little machine that completely changed how people worked. And the guy behind it all, Mike Lazaridis, was a genuine prodigy. As a kid, he literally won an award for reading every single science book in his local library. He was a brilliant mind who pretty much single-handedly kicked off the smartphone revolution. But then the iPhone showed up. And this is where the whole story turns. Lazaridis was so locked into his belief that a phone was just for email and calls, he just couldn't see the future. He totally dismissed the idea of a tiny, powerful computer in your pocket. He just couldn't bring himself to rethink his own brilliant creation. And this leads us to this fascinating, kind of scary paradox from Adam Grant. The idea is that being super intelligent doesn't automatically protect you from being wrong. Sometimes it can actually be the thing that traps you because it makes you better at finding clever reasons to stick with your own flawed ideas. So this certainty trap, as it's called, works by pushing us into one of three really unhelpful mindsets whenever our core beliefs get challenged. Instead of getting curious, we immediately get defensive. Yeah, instead of thinking like a scientist who's just trying to find the truth, we start acting, well, a lot differently. First up, we can slip into preacher mode. This is where we're basically giving a sermon to protect and promote our own ideals. Then there's prosecutor mode, where our only goal is to win an argument and prove the other person is wrong. And finally, we can shift into politician mode, where we're not really looking for the truth, we're just trying to win over an audience and get their approval. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. There's a crazy story about an expert on gullibility, a guy named Steven Greenspan, who actually fell for Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. Why? Because he fell into these exact traps. He preached to himself about how great the returns were, he prosecuted his friend's doubts, and he was swayed by the politician's logic of, well, all these other smart people are investing. So if the preacher, the prosecutor, and the politician are the villains playing around in our heads, who's the hero of the story? Well, it's the scientist. And this is a mindset that any of us, absolutely any of us, can adopt to break free. Now, thinking like a scientist isn't about wearing a lab coat or working with beakers. It's about being actively open-minded. It means you treat your own opinions not as facts, but as hypotheses that need to be tested. You're driven by curiosity, and you're actually willing, even happy, to be proven wrong if it gets you closer to the truth. This right here is such a crucial shift in thinking. In prosecutor mode, changing your mind feels like admitting defeat, right? It's like you lost. But in scientist mode, changing your mind is seen as a mark of integrity. It's a real step toward the truth. It's not weakness at all. It's intellectual honesty. So what's the payoff? What actually happens when people adopt this mindset in the real world? Does it really lead to better results? Oh yeah, the evidence is pretty incredible. Let's take a look at this amazing experiment with Italian entrepreneurs. So get this. Researchers took a bunch of startup founders and trained half of them to think like scientists. Their business plan wasn't some sacred document. It was just a theory. Their product wasn't a finished masterpiece. It was an experiment they needed to test. The other half, the control group, got the same standard business training, just without that scientist framing. The results were just dramatic. The founders who were taught to think like scientists were more than twice as likely to pivot, to totally change their business model when the evidence showed their first ideas weren't working. They didn't stubbornly cling to a failing strategy. And that flexibility, it paid off. Big time. In the year that followed the training, the scientists group's companies earned, on average,
over $1 million more in revenue than the control group. This just shows that rethinking isn't some fuzzy mental exercise. It has a massive, real-world financial payoff.
This quote really just nails the whole idea. So often, we think learning is about collecting facts that prove we're right. But real learning, the kind that leads to actual growth and discovery, is all about being willing to evolve what we believe when we're faced with new evidence. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that our strongest convictions can actually become our own prisons. But the good news is that rethinking is a skill, something you can build. All it takes are the right tools: humility, a little bit of doubt, and a whole lot of curiosity. It's about learning to test your opinions, not just defend them. Because real confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about being confident in your ability to learn. And that brings us to the final question, which is really a question for you. Think about your own deeply held beliefs, about your job, your life, the world. What is one conviction you hold dear that, after all this, you might be ready to put to the test? Thanks for joining us for this explainer. If it helped you see things a little differently, we'd love it if you'd subscribe. We'll see you next time.